Today, I'm going to play through Pokemon Yellow with the prehistoric Pokemon Aerodactyl. While I use this flying rock intimidating bat dragon thing to crush my enemies, I'm going to talk about some prehistoric memories that I have from playing these games when I was a kid. I hope you'll also share your childhood memories from this generation in the comments below. Some of you have already shared some stories as comments in my previous video, and I'll share a couple of those that made me laugh when I read them. By the way, if you show me that you like this video by giving it 2,500 likes, I'll make a video like this in Generation 2. Aerodactyl has a special place in my heart. When I was in grade 3, I was struggling to defeat the league in my second playthrough of Pokemon Yellow. I had reset my game and sped through it because I had the experience of beating it the first time. Due to this, I didn't have a wildly overleveled Butterfree and an Articuno on my side. To help me out, one of my friends at school traded me his level 100 Aerodactyl. He told me that it was an incredible Pokemon and that I would have no issues beating the league with it. I remember how honored I felt to have received this max level powerhouse. After using it to defeat the league, I offered it back to him, but he said that I should keep it. Seriously, remembering this gives me such warm feelings inside. That day, my friend chose pure kindness. Following in his footsteps, I want this video to be really positive, so I'm going to reflect on a few things I've said in previous videos. I was pretty mean to Voltorb and Galarian Meowth. These two little Pokemon are probably someone's favorite out there, and I made jokes at their expense. A lot of you actually spoke up in the comments about how you liked their designs, and how Voltorb's well designed because it's like a classic RPG mimic. After receiving this comment on my Meowth video, I figured I'd say, I'm sorry Meowth, your Galarian form is strange, and it would have been really cool if an underloved Pokemon like Dunsparce or Quillfish got a new form or evolution instead of you. When I first saw you, I was really shocked and dismayed that your creators decided to give you a strange beard double chin thing, which, on closer inspection, turns out to be some strange tuft of steel fur. I'm sure you're someone's favorite, and because of that, I'll find some love in my heart for you. No jokes at the expense of any Pokemon today. By the way, this little guy is one of my favorites. He's got the sweetest little teeth and smile. His eyes just scream, I want to be loved. Well, I for one genuinely love him. With that out of the way, let's get going. Jolteon is going to be the strongest final stage evolution for Aerodactyl to go up against. It's an interesting turn of events that Jolteon and Aerodactyl are speed tied at 130 base speed. If I'm able to get through this underleveled, that may turn into an issue in the late game. Additionally, Jolteon will have super effective electric moves. Its massive special, in combination with Aerodactyl's low special, will make it a serious threat. I'll have to defeat the rival in the lab and at the optional fight west of Viridian City in order for him to evolve Eevee into Jolteon. The first fight is simple due to my moveset and my typing. His normal type tackle is not very effective against me. My wing attack gets stab right away too, so Eevee is an easy 3-hit. I also took a shot at rock types in previous videos, so here I'm going to give them a compliment. Their outstanding defense stat makes them powerful options in the early game, when the designers decide to throw a lot of normal and flying Pokemon at you. I train up a small amount by knocking out every wild Pokemon I encounter while fetching Oak's Parcel. After that, I hightail it towards the next rival fight. Spearow takes 3 turns to knock out and lowers my defense twice before finally fainting. Next is Eevee. It starts off by landing a Tail Whip, which lowers my defense again. After that, it hits a Sand Attack, the strongest move in the world. I really can't compliment this move even when I'm trying to be positive. There's just too much trauma there. I miss a wing attack, and it lands an attack. Even with 3 stages lower defense, Aerodactyl still tanks it really well. The next turn, I land my final wing attack, and Eevee faints. I do a small amount of training in Viridian Forest by fighting all the bug catchers. Wing attack is super effective, so it makes training fast and easy. I doubt I can beat Brock at this level anyways, so I'd just be back here training sooner rather than later. I arrive at him at level 10. I've always got to satisfy my curiosity and fight him right away to see if the Pokemon I'm using can actually take him out at a decently low level. He opens with Geodude. Wing attack looks like it's dealing 2 damage. That's really promising. Geodude's tackle does 2 damage as well, which means it's going to put a lot of damage onto Aerodactyl before I knock it out. Because of my base speed, Aerodactyl has a 25.4% chance to land a critical hit. Yeah, critical hits are calculated with base speed in Generation 1. It's really strange and broken. After defeating the Geodude, I level up, which gives me some additional hit points. I've got 25 remaining for Onix. It's a good thing Aerodactyl has agility. I can use it to negate Bide's damage. Because I don't have any badges, it also won't trigger the badge boost glitch. The scariest move that Onix can use here is Bind, because it traps your Pokemon for multiple turns. It essentially puts out several hit points of damage all at once. As the fight progresses, it's hard to get an accurate read on what the outcome is going to be. Onix lands a brutal bind, taking Aerodactyl down to 7 hit points. After that, it switches into Bide. It looks like I'll be able to knock it out before it unleashes energy, so I decide to just go for it. Aerodactyl gets the job done. Well, that was a tedious fight. This Pterodactyl did a great job and made it past Brock at a lower level than I expected. Mount Moon offers no good TMs for Aerodactyl, so I rush down to the lowest level and grab the Dome Fossil. Kabutops is so cool. Think about how it has scythes for hands. I actually originally wrote a joke here about how it's way better than Omastar, but because I'm actually editing these scripts now, I've decided that I won't put this cute little prehistoric snail down. After all, look at it. It just wants 2 giant high fives. Okay, funny story from the comments. Quote, "Younger me playing red and blue thought that the man blocking the entrance to Cerulean Cave looked like he was wearing a tall black hat, like the guards at Buckingham Palace." Okay, I cannot unsee this now. I just look at this guy and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's a little guard. That's what he's doing. He's just hanging out there. Maybe there's a palace somewhere around. Also, I got another useful comment mentioning that there's actually a hidden ether on the fence behind the lass. So I went looking for it this time, and there it is. I love learning new things about these games. I head over to the gym, and at level 20, Misty is doing a lot of damage to Aerodactyl with super effective water moves. I'll level up on the SSN before defeating her. So of course the go-to nostalgic story for the SSN is that Mew was under the truck. This rumor is so interesting to me because so many people at my school actually believed it. I remember deliberately planning while I was on the SSN so that all my Pokemon would faint after I got the HM for cut so that the SSN wouldn't save away. This way I could leave the area and come back later to check for Mew. I came back multiple times, tried strength on the truck, but it never moved, revealing a Mew. I also tried using other HMs like Cut and Fly. Who else fell for this one as a kid? It does beg an interesting question though. Why did the developers put the truck there? Perhaps they intended for this area to be revisited later? Or maybe content was cut from the game here? Anyways, I think we'll probably never know. I've leveled up now, so it's time to face Misty again. Staryu is the same story. Starmie uses water gun. Starmie uses water gun? What was that? Starmie uses water gun first turn and Aerodactyl survives. Then she uses X defend. That's all I needed in order to take the victory. In the electric gym, I take on one of the trainers to get a feel for how Aerodactyl's not very effective wing attack is going to match up against Surge. So not very well. I doubt Surge is going to happen at this level, so I need to go train. I head out east of Vermilion to gain experience. I honestly never set foot in this route during challenges, so it's a bit strange to be out here. While I was doing training, I reviewed Aerodactyl's moveset. Could Bide be the answer here? Surge sends out Raichu. I outspeed, getting my Bide off before he deals damage to me with Mega Punch. X speed is next, but Aerodactyl luckily gets a 3-turn Bide and absorbs another hit from Raichu's Mega Kick. Is that going to be enough? It isn't, but I take him down to low health. Wing attack might get the job done now. Please no Thunderbolt. He goes for Growl, and Aerodactyl knocks the Raichu out. Whenever Bide comes to the rescue, I feel really happy. I love when this awful move is the solution. So who has a good story about Rock Tunnel? I bet some of you do. HM5 Flash was so out of the way that I didn't know it existed in this generation. I originally thought they introduced it in Gold and Silver as a way to make these dark areas easier to navigate. Only after coming back to these games, after an ex-girlfriend bought me Pokemon X for the 3DS at Christmas, did I actually realize that Flash was a thing. You might ask, but didn't Sabrina's Abra use it against you? Well, I really didn't read the text as a kid. My reading and writing skills developed fairly late in life, so I've always struggled with that, so I just ignored it. Because I didn't know Flash existed, I just memorized the layout of the cave using a poisoned Pokemon in order to see where the trainers were. Did anyone else do this? Funny note, this was the first time I wanted the self-destructing hiker to explode all of his Pokemon. Graveler's Rock Throw is so scary, and the normal type self-destruct is far more preferable. Lucky for me, I ended up knocking it out before it got me with Rock Throw. If you're enjoying my content, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and comment. These things really help me out and keep me motivated to keep making content for you. Thanks so much. Just before Erika, I get access to Stab Fly. I wish Aerodactyl could also learn Rock Slide in this generation. It actually can't learn it until Generation 4. By the way, I'm thinking of doing a Generation 4 Let's Play in an episodic form. I've hardly ever played that generation, and in anticipation of doing challenges in it and playing the remakes, I thought it'd be fun to do. Would anyone be interested in seeing that? Put it in the comments if you would be. I take the opportunity to train up on the grass trainers in the gym. Then I plow through Erika. She's honestly really easy. Giovanni and Rocket Hideout is next. I spam flying moves against him. Because my defense is high and I'm resisting their primary normal moves, he can't threaten me, only annoy me. His Rhyhorn actually only knows Horn Attack. It's a really funny moveset. Did anyone ever have problems with him as a kid? Honestly, I think the designers genuinely wanted ground types to be very powerful. They gave them moves like Earthquake and Fissure and Dig. However, because these Pokemon typically have low special and usually your starter has high special, they end up feeling like some of the most frail and weak Pokemon in the game. I remember Alakazam feeling like the tankiest Pokemon in the entire game, and that's largely because I was always using special moves as a kid. I head over to Pokemon Tower. It's got such a cool mystique. There's no question why the Lavender Town theme music is so famous. The ghosts that appear here are a really novel concept too. They confounded me as a kid. You can't attack them, you can't catch them, they're just there and you have to run. They also didn't appear anywhere in the Pokemon guide that I had, so I thought that they might be new Pokemon that no one had ever seen before. When it was finally revealed that they are ghastly, I was honestly a bit let down, because I wanted to be the person who came to school saying that I'd discovered a new Pokemon species. I make it through Silph and battle the rival there. At this level, Aerodactyl isn't going to make it past Cloyster. If only I knew Rock Slide. I spend some time training against the Rocket Grunts, and then decide to move on to Koga, who I have a super effective stab move for. On my way, I wake up the Snorlax. Whenever I played through the game, I would always wake one Snorlax up and leave the other one sleeping. For some reason, I always wanted to leave one of them so that I could come back and encounter it later if I wanted to. For my small child brain, it just felt really weird to remove all the available catchable Snorlax from the game. As I heal to take Koga on, I'm reminded of how I was convinced that the Pokemon centers took something from me when they healed my Pokemon. Like, yeah, they said it was free, but nothing's free. Like, maybe they took some of my Pokemon's experience points or something. There's absolutely no way that they could just provide this service for nothing. The Safari Zone was also so exciting as a kid. The thrills of running into rare Pokemon that felt almost impossible to catch really captured my attention as a child. I swear I stopped battling and progressing in the game for a couple of weeks just to spend time in here trying to catch Chansey, Scyther, Tauros, and Kangaskhan. Koga is a pushover with Aerodactyl on my side. Stab Fly is very powerful against all of his bug poison types. Venomoth survives because it's a psychic flying Pokemon, obviously, but because of my speed, I get to just knock it out the next turn, so it's okay that it resisted my attacks. With him out of the way, wow, my gosh, I can't say this line, it's so hard. With him out of the way, I make my way back to Silph. Okay, I did it. Sandslash is still landing sand attacks and being so annoying. Fly only has 95% accuracy in the first place, so after taking a few sand attacks, this fight gets really painful. I head over to the fighting dojo and do some more training. While I'm in there, I reviewed Aerodactyl's learn set and decided to go for Blaine next. He'll give me Fire Blast, and this special attack will likely deal more damage against Sandslash as well as Cloyster. Because I haven't beat the rival, I need to get a Super Rod and then go fishing for a Pokemon that can surf. Thinking back on it, I probably should have just picked up Squirtle from Vermilion, but I sort of forgot that it's there. After grabbing the rare candies in Pokemon Mansion, I go head to head with Blaine. Because of Aerodactyl's typing, this fight isn't going to be hard. In my first playthrough, because I only used Butterfree up until this point, Blaine was incredibly hard to defeat. I actually had to revive the Helix fossil and use it with Surf to defeat him. So I've got some nostalgic attachment to Omastar as well. Plus, look at it. It really just wants a big double high five. By the way, there's a fossil race incoming soon. Very soon. Against the rival, I get lucky. This fight could have been worse, but I'm doing much more damage to Sandslash as well as Cloyster. So even with worse luck, I'd probably have defeated him on the second or third attempt. For elementary, my parents sent me to a school that frowned on technology. It was honestly a strange place. Because of that, they tried to keep me away from television as much as possible. This is one of the reasons that I was only allowed to play Game Boy on the weekends, and I would end up sneaking into the bathroom to play more. But my grandparents really didn't care about these rules, so whenever I'd go to their place, I'd be able to play Pokemon Yellow all day while watching YTV, a kids' TV channel where I live. The worst part about YTV was the fact that there wasn't only Pokemon on it. There was a bunch of other kids' shows. Because I didn't have access to a schedule for the channel, I'd just sit there hoping that Pokemon would come on next. A lot of the time, I never got to watch it. But one night, an episode came on where Sabrina, this intimidating older girl who possessed a doll, turned Ash and his friends into dolls and put them in her dollhouse. I was pretty interested in this. Sabrina, you can turn me into a doll and play with me anytime. Look at her sprite, she's even got a whip. In this playthrough, she honestly does sort of play with me, but it's not as fun as I was hoping for. Aerodactyl's accuracy immediately causes an issue. I miss. And then Abra lands Flash. Throughout this first fight against her, I miss Fly a grand total of 11 times. This was one of the most painful fights I've had. I know that Aerodactyl could get this done because it has a massive attack stat, but it just isn't allowed to attack. Alright Sabrina, stop. I didn't think it would be like this. On my third fight, I finally land my hits and I knock out all of her frail Pokemon. The only gym leader left for me now is Giovanni. Before I take him on, I train a tiny bit and get my level up. I'm starting to become underleveled after all. Some of his Pokemon have low special, and Lorelei is coming up soon, so I teach Aerodactyl Fire Blast. I use some PP ups on it so that I can miss a few times and still have enough to knock his Pokemon out. I also save one PP up for Hyper Beam. I'll learn that very soon. Dugtrio is first. The nice thing against it is that due to its moveset, it actually can't damage Aerodactyl. It knows 3 ground moves and Sand Attack. I think Fly is the best choice here. I get Stab and it leverages my high attack stat. Fire Blast on the other hand uses Aerodactyl's low special. Dugtrio hangs on with a sliver of health. Then I knock it out the next turn. Persian is next. I get a critical hit, but it also hangs on with a sliver of health. Come on! Nidoqueen misses a ridiculous number of thunders. I know half of the misses are because I'm in the air flying, but even just missing the ones that I'm on the ground is insane. By the way, it seems like thunder should always hit if the Pokemon is flying. Sort of funny that it can only hit me when my bird is sitting on the ground. Nidoking comes out. I fail my supersonic and it gets a guard spec. I land supersonic next turn and it hits itself. I switch into Fire Blast to see if this will do better than Fly, and then it lands Thunder. It knocks Aerodactyl out in a single hit. I try a couple more times. Turns out this fight is actually hard for Aerodactyl. The fact that both Nidoqueen and Nidoking have Thunder is really messing me up. These are special moves, so Reflect won't help. And due to the damage output from them, Rest won't help either. To complicate matters, Rock type doesn't resist Rock moves, meaning that Aerodactyl will take super effective damage from Rhydon's Rock Slide. And the final issue, Rhydon has great defense, and my only special move is Fire Blast, which it resists. I know that I could set up the badge boost glitch against Dugtrio, but that feels really exploitive. I'm trying to only use the badge boost glitch if it also makes sense to raise that stat anyways. In this case, Aerodactyl has incredible speed, and there really is no reason that I would want to raise its speed more. I have less issues using this glitch if I'm playing through with a weak first stage Pokemon, but here I'm gonna find another way. Let's do some training. While I'm grinding away, I review the Pokemon's learn sets, and see if I can come up with other ideas for how the fight could be won. An idea comes to me. I can use Mimic to steal Dugtrio's Earthquake, giving Aerodactyl access to a super effective move that also uses its attack stat. Coming back at level 50, I attempt it with this strategy for the first time. I'm still able to get through both Dugtrio and Persian without any real issues. Then I get my first chance to use Earthquake versus the Nidoqueen. It does good damage. He uses Guard Spec, and that's out of the way. Nidoking misses Thunder, and I've made it to Rhydon. He uses another Guard Spec, and after my second hit takes it down to a sliver of health, it uses Rock Slide. It does so much damage, taking Aerodactyl down to 15 hit points. If Giovanni didn't have Guard Specs, this fight would have required more levels, even with the Mimic strategy, but luckily for me, his poor choices allow me to progress. Against the rival, I thought it might be fun to steal Earthquake from Sandslash, but whoopsies, of course this Sandslash doesn't have it yet. Guess I have to steal an awful move instead. Because of Aerodactyl's special stat, I can't knock the Cloyster out in a single turn with Fire Blast. Cloyster also has 180 base defense, so I think Fire Blast is still the best choice, despite it not resisting my Fly Stab. It lands Clamp and does a lot of damage to Aerodactyl. I misplay next. I should have used Slash to knock Kadabra out. However, I use Fly. This allows it to set up a turn of Reflect, and that causes Aerodactyl to take 2 turns of damage from Leech Seed. Additionally, because of Reflect, it survives my Fly and then knocks me out with Psybeam. On the next fight, I notice another issue that I'm going up against. Jolteon is a beast. It resists Fly and it knows Thunder, which can easily one-shot Aerodactyl. By the way, I've been asking people to comment on my terrible move selections. Here I use Fly against Jolteon. That's a pretty bad choice, right? But maybe today, since this video is about nostalgia and kindness, you could offer some kind words of encouragement like, "Hey Scott, I'm sure you'll eventually learn all these type matchups by heart, and you'll be the greatest Pokemon gamer ever. It's okay that you still think Venomoth is a psychic flying type. We're sure you'll check Bulbapedia sometime soon." Well, thanks for the encouragement, everyone. I really am trying my best to learn more about these games and become more knowledgeable. After the third fight, where I get knocked out by Cloyster, I decide I want to go train. I'm gonna say it again. I really resist the idea of using agility here because speed wouldn't have made this fight easier. I'd just be using it for exclusively the badge boost effect, and that seems pretty exploitive, especially with a Pokemon as strong as Aerodactyl. Coming back at level 54, Aerodactyl has learned Hyper Beam. I replaced agility, so there's no more way for me to be tempted by the badge boost glitch. The first portion of this fight is the same as before. There aren't any issues here until Cloyster, but now because of my higher level, I can put it into healing range, triggering Butt to use a potion. This happens because his trainer class is the same as it was earlier in the game, so no full restores for him. That allows me to knock Cloyster out and proceed. Kadabra is an easy one-hit with Hyper Beam. By the way, I should mention that if Hyper Beam knocks an opponent's Pokemon out, you don't need to recharge the next turn. This occurs exclusively in Generation 1. Jolteon is last. I outspeed it and knock it out immediately with Hyper Beam. In previous videos, I've shared many stories of places that I got stuck in this game. I'm almost at the point where I think that there wasn't a single location that I didn't get stuck in. Due to getting stuck, I was always encouraged to explore each area exhaustively. You just have to look everywhere and speak to everyone to try and progress. When I first played these games, I didn't know that you could make it through Viridian Forest. I missed the path on the right side, so I just told my grandparents that the game ended when you ran out of Pokédollars. Because if you ran out of Pokédollars, you couldn't buy Pokéballs, and without those, you couldn't catch Pokemon, and that's what the game is about. So needless to say, I was incredibly curious as to why the guard at Victory Road was blocking the way. I thought that there must be something incredibly cool back there. After finally finishing Giovanni off with my massively overleveled Butterfree and Articuno, I proceeded past these guards for the first time. The first time I set foot into Victory Road, it felt like such a massive achievement. I had stumbled at snail's pace through the entire game, and now I knew what was past the guard. It was an infuriating cave. I had no idea what these little white spots were on the ground. There was no clear clue about what I needed to do to proceed. I can't push this rock north, there's this weird red dot on the ground, but it doesn't do anything if you stand on it or if you click on it. Eventually I deduced that I might have to push the boulder onto it in order to progress. All of this was really hard as a kid, and it gave me such an incredible feeling of accomplishment when I finally decoded it and was able to progress. I love that these games were able to give me this kind of experience. I'll never forget the moment when I finally stepped out of Victory Road for the first time and heard the intimidating music of Indigo Plateau. This is it, the final challenge for all Pokemon trainers. Outside of the league, there's this NPC that just sits here. I chatted with him and he says, "Yo, champ in the making, at Pokemon League, you have to face the Elite Four in succession. If you lose, you have to start all over again. This is it, go for it." I showed it to my mother and had her read it for me. She read it word for word, and I felt the fear sink in. I thought that he meant that I had to start the entire game again if I lost. I was absolutely terrified to enter the stairs to the league. I remember turning the Game Boy on and just sitting outside the stairs looking at them. I'd visualize what it would feel like to have to start again, defeat Brock, play through the entire game. I think this dialogue could have been slightly different and communicate that you only need to start the league again, not the entire game. Anyways, I finally went for it and lost to Lorelei, and then immediately figured out what he actually meant. Now let's discuss my approach to the league. I'm gonna complete it without saving between Elite Four members. I posted a poll and you clearly voted for this as the method to take. Since I posted this poll, I've completed footage for this run and several more that'll be released in the upcoming weeks. I can say without a doubt that I prefer this method. It's more interesting and makes my heart race in the ladder fights. I love that. It gives me the excitement that these games used to give me when I was a kid. So thanks everyone for voting. You've encouraged me to switch, and I'm much happier this way. Due to the flexibility of emulators though, I'll copy my save file right before the league. This will allow me to replay the league after I complete it the first time. This second playthrough of the league I'll attempt with saves. I'm genuinely curious if one method is faster than the other. I'll include this footage at the end of each challenge video. Right now, I think saving in general is going to save a lot of time. I think the strategies that will be employed will also be significantly different between methods. More brute force stab or super effective moves when playing through without saves, and more wild luck based or creative strategies when saving. Lorelei presents a serious problem for Aerodactyl. While rock moves are super effective against ice types, Aerodactyl doesn't actually learn any rock moves in this generation. Making matters worse, my flying rock typing means I take a massive damage from her ice and water moves, all of which gets stab. As you can see, these fights are going terribly for Aerodactyl, so I use all my rare candies and return. Even with the level boost, she is still absolutely brutal. I reset to before I used my rare candies, and I begin to do some training. Because of my moveset, training in Victory Road isn't the best. The rock types are annoying, so I choose to train in the Power Plant and Pokemon Mansion instead. Taking the trip to the Power Point also allows me to grab an extra PP up and rare candy, as well as knock out Zapdos, which brings back another memory. When I first found Zapdos, I was so curious what this little bird sprite was doing there that I immediately clicked on it. This led to a battle, and I didn't save. During the fight, I accidentally knocked it out trying to get its HP lower. I came back to the power plant countless times hoping that it would reappear, but it never did. I was so disappointed when I found out that I only had one chance to catch it. Because of that, Zapdos has become my favorite of the legendary birds. It was the one that got away. I level up to level 62 and then use my rare candies to take Aerodactyl up to level 66. I want to see if I can get this done at a lowish level, but unfortunately at this level it's still not happening. Because of that, I decide to use all my rare candies and take Aerodactyl all the way up to level 73. I get past Dugong taking a small amount of damage. At this level, I can take Cloyster into healing range, preventing it from dealing any damage. I luck out with a great critical hit against Slowbro. Jinx comes out, and Hyper Beam makes quick work of it. It has low defense after all. Lapras is last, and here I get a lucky critical hit and knock it out in a single turn. This is my first time moving on to Bruno. Because of Onix's low special stat, Fire Blast can knock it out in a single turn. The Hitmons are easy with Fly. The second Onix unfortunately survives because of its higher level, but it doesn't pose a serious threat to Aerodactyl. It does good damage with a critical hit Rock Slide, and then I knock it out. Machamp is a one-hit with Fly, so Bruno is easy as usual. Everything is well with the world. Agatha is also extremely easy. Part of me wishes that I could have got past Lorelei at a lower level in order to see if these two fights might have been harder. Lance is next. Gyarados starts this fight off. I need to avoid as much damage as possible. I start off with Fly. It does good damage, and then Gyarados lands Hydro Pump. And it gets a critical hit, which knocks Aerodactyl out in a single turn. So that's some seriously bad luck. Guess I have to start all over. It takes me 5 fights to get past Lorelei again. It's still hard at this level, but I can manage it. Bruno and Agatha just waste time and I return to Lance. This time, I actually get past the Gyarados. I was so scared it was going to land another critical hit. It has a 15% chance to get one because of its base speed. However, now I only have orange health left. The first Dragonair paralyzes me and lands a Thunderbolt, taking me down to low orange health. The next Dragonair outspeeds me. I want to be able to mimic its Ice Beam and use it on Aerodactyl and Dragonite, but because of paralysis, this fight is over. I don't think I can make it through these Pokemon with more health in this type of strategy. I want to keep Fire Blast on my moveset for the Cloyster in the final fight. I can't remove Fly because it's an HM, and there's no move deleter in Generation 1. Additionally, I need Mimic in order to get an Ice move to defeat the final 2 Pokemon on Lance's team. So I decide to go train. While I'm training, I come up with a strategy. I head to Celadon and put in the time to get Hyper Beam. Many of you commenting on my Scyther vs Pinsir video asked why I didn't use Hyper Beam for the league with Scyther. Well, honestly, since that was a race, I was really worried about the time that it would take to get the Hyper Beam TM. Hindsight is 2020 though, and it's immediately obvious that after playing that run, I should have just immediately got that TM with Scyther. But unfortunately, I thought I could make it through with luck rather than grabbing Hyper Beam for a more consistent run. With this TM, I can now remove Hyper Beam from my moveset and replace it with Rest for the fight against Lance. Then I can relearn it once the fight is over. At level 76, I get past Lorelei on my first attempt. This fight is starting to feel easier. I only needed to be 20-ish levels higher than her Pokemon. Why did you not give Aerodactyl Rock Slide, Game Freak? Why? I think this run is actually turning out to be surprisingly hard. When I initially started it, I thought it was going to be particularly easy because of Aerodactyl's stats. Unfortunately, its typing and its learn set make this a bit hard. At Lance, I get past Gyarados without sustaining a critical hit. This allows me to rest up on the following Dragonair. I can't become paralyzed permanently now. I knock it out and I move on to the next Dragonair. Here, I grab Ice Beam and then I knock it out. At Aerodactyl, I decide to go for Rest. This is because Aerodactyl only knows physical moves, and so it can't do very much damage to me. I tank these moves well, knock it out, and then move on to Dragonite. It isn't particularly fast, so I move first with a 4 times effective Ice Beam and knock it out. Rest was the solution. I replace Rest with Hyper Beam. It's time for my first attempt against the champion. I really don't want to have to do all that again. Can I defeat him on my first attempt? Let's find out. Sandslash is first. It doesn't have the ability to deal a lot of damage to me. I use Mimic to steal its Earthquake. This is going to be very useful against Ninetales and Jolteon. 2 Flies knock it out and I move on to Alakazam. Because of its frail defenses, Fly can knock it out in a single hit. Executor takes super effective damage from Fly and goes down. It's nice to avoid Leech Seed in this fight, especially when Cloyster is scary. Fire Blast is neutrally effective against it and takes it into orange health. Then it misses a Clamp. That's really fortunate. I made it to Ninetales only sustaining 4 hit points of damage. A super effective Earthquake one-shots Ninetales. It's Jolteon time. We have the same base speed, so because of my level, I outspeed and I knock it out with Earthquake. Aerodactyl did it. But I do have to say that I thought it would be easier and that I would get through it at a lower level. Perhaps with the badge boost glitch, it would be possible. Working against Aerodactyl in Generation 1 is its learn set and its typing. So that's it for the proper portion of the video. But if you want to see how saving between Elite Four members would affect the time, stay tuned. If you enjoy my content, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and comment below. I really want to read about all of your stories from Generation 1. Finally, if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a patron. I'm currently collecting the original 151 patrons. Plus, if you do become a patron, you get to be part of this cool credit sequence. Thanks to all of you patrons listed here. You keep me motivated and well fed. Now, let's find out how Aerodactyl does with saving between the league. Before the league, I duplicated my save file. I'll use the second copy to film this portion of the video. I reset the clock to the time that I was when I first attempted Lorelei. In order to get the best possible time, I use all 10 rare candies and immediately proceed to fight her. It takes me 11 attempts to get past her with this learn set. This doesn't change much from the previous run, other than the fact that I'm skipping the portion of time that I needed to use the rare candies on Aerodactyl every single time after I reset. Bruno and Agatha are unchanged from before. I get through them on my first attempt. I won't have to replay these fights, and this saves significant amount of time. The only reason I need to redo them is if Lance or the champion are impossible at this level. In the first fight against Lance, I decide to skip Rest. This doesn't go well. I'm not going to be able to steal Ice Beam without Rest, so I just knock out both the Dragonairs immediately. Aerodactyl though knocks me out after some seriously awful move selections. One thing I notice with saving between the league members is that I'm less careful with my move selection. I take less time to think. I only lose a small amount of progress if I mess up after all. Plus, I can use the data from the fights I lose to strategize for the next attempt. The second fight I teach Aerodactyl Rest. I really do need Ice Beam. Gyarados and the first Dragonair go down in the usual way. I use Mimic and grab Ice Beam and then I get frozen. Good thing I saved. 3 fights later on my 5th attempt, I knock Gyarados out without it dealing any damage to me. This allows me to get through to the Aerodactyl with green health. After that, Dragonite comes out and I KO it with Ice Beam. That's it. I've made it to the champion with a level 66 Aerodactyl. Here's my stats going into the final fight. Sandslash is a similar story as before. It can't damage me with its most powerful move because of my flying typing. I steal Earthquake and move on. At this level, I'm still one-hitting the Alakazam. That's really encouraging. Executor is a one-hit and it leads to Cloyster. I deal a small amount of damage to it with Fly, and then it takes me down to 1 hit point with Clamp. Hyper Beam better get this done. It doesn't, and Aerodactyl faints. This was my 4th fight, and it made me realize that the strategy of mimicking Earthquake isn't gonna work. So what might be better to mimic? I knock out both Sandslash and Alakazam without stealing a move. Against Exeggutor, I mimic Hypnosis. I land it first turn against Cloyster and switch into Hyper Beam. This makes me realize the inherent flaw with this strategy. Exeggutor is gonna land Leech Seed. Both of my moves that deal damage are 2-turn moves. Fly requires a turn to set up, and Hyper Beam requires a recharge since I can't one-hit the Cloyster with it. Additionally, Cloyster is gonna recover health with Leech Seed every turn it's on the field. I'd need it to stay asleep for the maximum number of turns in order to get this done. Additionally, Hypnosis really likes to miss, so there has to be a more consistent way to get this done. And there is. And oh my, is it dirty. It's so dirty, I get slightly excited thinking about it. On my 10th attempt, I steal Alakazam's Kinesis. It's time to lower some accuracy. I think Alakazam heard my thoughts though, because it spams Kinesis and lowers Aerodactyl's accuracy. I only miss 2 turns of Fly, and then I knock Alakazam out. With this strategy, I can one-shot Exeggutor and avoid Leech Seed. However, this time I miss due to Kinesis, and it still seeds me. The AI thinks that Leech Seed is super effective against Aerodactyl's rock typing, so it just spams it until I land my 3rd Fly and knock it out. Cloyster comes out. Due to Alakazam's Kinesis, I miss 3 of my own in a row, and then I get knocked out. Alright, I deserve to be punished for even attempting this strategy. But this is not going to happen every fight. I think I can get this done. In the next fight, number 11, Alakazam uses Psychic, and I get past it without having my accuracy lowered. Then, the game messes me up again, and Aerodactyl doesn't one-shot Exeggutor. I guess this is a range at this level. It seeds me, so I decide to rest up and restore a small amount of health. I land my first Kinesis against Cloyster, and it hits me with Aurora Beam. My second Kinesis hits, and it misses. So far, so good. I rest up, and it misses 2 attacks. On the turn that I wake up, it lands Clamp, which gets a critical hit and knocks me out in 2 turns. I can do this. In fight number 12, I learned another lesson. Don't get greedy with Kinesis. I want to get off 2 and then heal immediately. After that, 1 Kinesis at a time, and then heal whenever it deals damage. In fight 19, I knock Sandslash out as usual, grab Kinesis from Alakazam, I tank Psybeam well. I accidentally spammed A and used Kinesis on Alakazam, but luckily it misses its move and I knock it out with Fly. This time, Exeggutor once again survives my attack, but in good news, it misses Leech Seed. By the way, all status moves that the AI use have a 25% chance of failing despite the move's accuracy. So, I've arrived at Cloyster without my accuracy being lowered, and without Leech Seed. I land Kinesis twice and then I heal up. Cloyster lands a 3-turn Clamp, but luckily it doesn't critical hit. Because I have 2 turns of Kinesis set up, I take the safe route and heal. I don't want to give this away. I tank an Aurora Beam, and then I go for a single Kinesis. It lands another Aurora Beam, and I need to heal again. This time, I wake up without taking damage and switch back into Kinesis. Aerodactyl, you're seriously giving Sandshrew a run for its money as most annoying Pokemon right now. You could say that Aerodactyl is really being a big pain in the butt. After setting up 6 turns of Kinesis, I switch into Fly and knock the Cloyster out in 3 turns. I use my remaining PP of Kinesis against Ninetales to avoid its Confuse Rays, and then I knock it out. Now, the question is, will Hyper Beam one-shot Jolteon? I land it, and it does. Aerodactyl finishes the league 10 levels lower and roughly 40 minutes faster when I allowed myself to save between members. So, in this specific case, saving really does speed things up. I'm curious to continue testing this in my future videos. I wonder if the trend will continue. I did notice that during the first time through the league, it felt slightly less creative. Figuring out exactly how to take the Cloyster route with my moveset in the champion fight at a lower level really pushed me to come up with some interesting mimic strategies. I also really enjoyed figuring out exactly how far I could push Kinesis. I really liked contrasting these two approaches to the league, so I'm going to continue doing this in future challenge videos. I've also started to record in a spreadsheet all the times for these Pokemon in Generation 1. So at the end of next week's video, which will be a Snorlax run by the way, I'll start providing the data. We can then see how all these Pokemon stack up. I won't be including Pokemon that I did runs with without a timer though. Those runs are honestly pretty old and I've learned so much since then. Perhaps one day, for consistency's sake, I'll replay these games with Hitmonchan or Beedrill to get a time to compare to everyone else. I've released my June schedule on my Patreon, and I'm really excited about the runs that I have coming up. Next week is Snorlax with a special twist. Additionally, I'm especially excited for the upcoming Versus video. It's going to be Steelix vs Scizor in Pokemon Gold. Look out for that around mid-June. Thank you so much to all my patrons. Your support means the world to me. And a huge thanks to all of you who made it this far in the video. You're all incredible. I'll see you next time.